our system is designed to erase and eradicate every vestige of masculinity from our boys. Okay? Every vestige of masculinity from our boys. Our school system, our pedagogical methods, our entire school culture is designed for little girls to be successful and little boys to be frustrated and put on Ritalin. Okay? So that they sit there docile like little girls. Okay? We emasculate them. We make them compete with girls throughout their whole lives and not see them as the weaker sex to be protected, but just another dude with breasts.
I think men are important. Like for what? We'll take a break.
Some women have penises, right? Some men have vaginas.
I like scented candles. I've watched Sex and the City.
Yeah.
How do I know if I'm a woman?
That's a great question.
Across media outlets, they're talking about, if a man wants to work out and he's got muscles, it means he's right-wing and he's probably going to be sexist and a misogynist. I mean, what the hell is that? The government, this system, they want you weak. They want men in particular to be weak, fat, and compliant.
There was the disgusting WAP song by Cardi B. Why does the United States have such an awful culture?
Nobody cares about when you do that and there's a consequence there. Nobody cares about that. We don't want to see that.
Men are being taught to become weaker, demasculinize them, more effeminate, show your emotions. It's okay to be weak, fat, and frail.
Adam had abandoned his position. And so the desperate need of today is to call males back to being men, as God defines a man, not as the culture defines it. And so I want to speak with you about answering the question about the position of a man. Adam, where are you? Here is the first thing that you need to understand about a man and his position. Not his location alone, but his position. And that is that it is a position of priority. I know some won't like that, but this is not a popularity meeting. It is a position of priority because God says in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 12, God created Adam first, and then he created Eve. Word first. First has to do with order. First has to do with progress in time. Adam and Eve were not created at the same time. Adam first, then Eve. God spends a whole chapter, Genesis 2, discussing Adam before Eve is ever created for Adam. Why? Because it would be the man who would be responsible. The man was created first because God would hold him responsible. Even though it was Adam and Eve in the garden hiding from God, God didn't say, Adam and Eve, where are y'all? He said, Adam, where are you?
Isn't this Exhibit A why Olympic ratings are so low this year? The focus on woke and not the win?
Woke. Once everyone's all woke it'll be great.
Woke's a dangerous word to use.
Sometimes people can be so woke, though.
Everybody in the end gets cancelled.
Yeah.
Well, as I always say, good luck to the wokerati when the Chinese Communist Party takes over. They're going to have a great time.
This idea of purity and you're never compromised and you're always politically woke and all that stuff, you should get over that quickly. The world is messy,
Wokeism. What is it? A force for good? For bad?
The woke ultras who want to wipe away all symbols of British imperialism don't speak for the families who lived under the empire.
Political correctness gone mad?
You can always count on a cabbie to say it how it is. And when it comes to political correctness, this lot certainly have a view.
As far as today's thinking is concerned, you know, I'm a dinosaur.
Is it really everywhere?
Coca-Cola going all woke.
Is it a red herring? A new McCarthyism?
I invited them to give information of wrongdoing, graft, corruption, communism. I am continuing to get that information.
Getting documents too?
Yes.
The idea of being woke, of wokeism, appeared seemingly out of nowhere. Does it have a history? What's going on under the surface when you strip away the noise? We'll look at the history of the term, how it's related to political correctness, ask whether it goes back even further, before thinking about what I'll describe as the broadening of the public sphere, its relationship to fashion, and the cancel culture debate. Let's just get stuck in. The problem with any analysis of a term like woke is that it's vague, already outdated, contested, and means different things to different people. What I want to try and show here is that it's best understood not as a concept, but as a logic or a process. Its original meaning, staying alert to injustice, has been reinterpreted by reactionaries to ironically describe the misguided, the censorious, and the dogmatic. But if it's just a label, how does it become an ism, a culture, a movement? To many, wokeism is equivalent to cancel culture, while many who are labelled as woke would reject the term entirely, or at least never use it themselves anymore. Of course, the idea of being awake to something is a vague notion, but in the early 20th century, this idea of being awake became associated with philosophical ideas about self-consciousness and identity, especially for Black Americans and the colonized. The black nationalist Marcus Garvey urged the oppressed colonies to wake up Ethiopia, wake up Africa, and argued that descendants of slaves in the US could only achieve political consciousness through separation, independence, and an exodus back to Africa.
You can enslave as was done for 300 years the bodies of men. You can shackle the hands of men. You can shackle the feet of men. You can imprison the bodies of men, but you cannot shackle or imprison the minds of men.
Sociologist and precursor to the civil rights movement, W.E.B. Du Bois wrote about a black double consciousness and a life within the veil. He wrote, "Whenever feels his two-ness, an American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings, two warring ideals in one dark body, whose dogged strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder. The history of the American Negro is the history of this striving, this longing to attain self-conscious manhood, to merge his double self into a better and truer self." In 1938, the American musician Leadbelly wrote a protest song about 9 black teenagers accused of rape. At the end, Leadbelly says,
And he showed me the Scottsboro boys, and I shake hands with them, so I made this little song about down there. So I advise everybody to be a little careful when they go along through that, but stay woke, keep their eyes open.
And the first writer to use the term in print was probably William Melvin Kelly, who argued that beatniks had appropriated black woke slang. He wrote that the American Negro feels he can, on the spur of the moment, create the most exciting language that exists in any English-speaking country today. I asked someone how they felt about white people trying to use hip language. He said, "Man, they blew the gig just by being grey." Barry Beckham's 1972 play Garvey Lives contains the lines, No, I won't go to sleep. I won't. I've been sleeping all my life.
When you're voting for your favorite artist, vote to change some of these laws that are oppressing us.
Lizzo was born in Detroit, Michigan. At the age of 10, she moved to Houston with her family. There, she began taking lessons in flute from a renowned music teacher. She also formed a musical group at the age of 14 and began rapping. She went on to attend the University of Houston and studied classical music with an emphasis in flute. Very sadly, her dad did die when she was 21, and she, was very depressed, and she dropped out of college, started living in her car, and then went on to try to make it big in the music industry, which she successfully did. She's now worth $12 million and also has a shapewear line. So you're standing on a stage, accepting an award for the music that you created, beloved by millions of fans, a household name at this point, who had two parents who loved you enough to want to foster your creativity, and you're worth $12 million. In what world are you oppressed?
Okay, can you give me an example of wokeness run amok?
On the macro level, it's like the rigid enforcement of progressive values, and if there's any deviation, you get bucked by the system, or you get excised or whatever. So if you're in school, people will try to cancel you or get you kicked out. If you're a faculty or administrator, people ask for your resignation.
Okay, so threats to livelihood.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So I think Brett Weinstein at Evergreen College was a pretty good example of that. I think Brett's arguments were, even if you disagreed with them, I think they were entirely reasonable.
He was interested in exploring race realism.
Okay, he's an evolutionary biologist. It's an appropriate topic to explore, right? One of my biggest frustrations as an online debater, content creator, is people like me end up getting tasked with debating these esoteric or very difficult to navigate scientific fields, and nobody from those scientific disciplines will ever enter into any of these discussions to give their opinions. So if somebody that actually has a background in the field wants to enter into that field and give a discussion on race realism, I'd prefer that to Nick Fuentes or somebody talking about it.
Pretty low bar to clear.
I'd prefer him to Ben Shapiro talking about it, I guess, yeah.
Another low standard. All right.
Tangible evidence of making anything an idol is that thing taking the place of our God, or is it pointing us to God? So I think one way that race can become an idol is that we prioritize one group over another because of race. So if a person is a racist, and I think we all have racism in our hearts. I don't think minorities are immune to racism. Red and yellow, black and white, we're all racist in His sight, apart from the gospel because of Adam's transgression. Now, I think historically, when you define racism, it's usually defined by as something that exists because of the majority group that's in power racializing people, and then working to make the circumstances for those people who are the marginalized group difficult because of their race. So racism is historically attached to, I think, power and privilege. But my point would be that if anybody is prioritizing race or is a racist, that's probably an evidence that a person is making race an idol. I think anytime one, I think, separates race from the overarching work of God in Christ, that could set one up for racial idolatry. If the goal is simply to be Afrocentric or Anglocentric for the purpose of promoting that racial identity as superior over another, then that, I would argue, is perhaps an evidence that there's idolatry. I think, man, when you see, I think images are powerful. I like art, but I don't really know anything about it. I'm not artistic at all, but I'm so thankful for people who are able to be artistic and to communicate powerful images and symbols through art. But one thing I do know about art is that art symbolically represents worldviews. And I think when we see images that are highlighted, that prioritize a certain racial group as being beautiful and other racial groups as being inferior or more prone to criminality, I think those of us who believe those images could in fact believe those because there's an idolatry in our hearts that is reflective of this racist idolatry, you see. So I think those sorts of things would be examples. I think examples like implicit biases, assuming that I'm inferior or superior based on my complexion, is an example of the idolatry of race. It's not simply being passionate about something, talking about something. I love basketball. But the love for basketball is not problematic as long as I'm not worshiping that instead of God. And I love talking about basketball. So the issue is not what do you talk about a lot or what are you passionate about. I think the issue is what are you prioritizing over and above God and over and above God in Christ. And if we are doing anything to prioritize gender or race or fill in the blank, then that is an example of idolatry. Certainly there are gender distinctions in the Bible. Certainly there are different ethnic groups, different racial groups, but all people deserve dignity. And when we fail to show the dignity to those people from different tongue, tribes, people, and nation, then that might reflect the idol in our heart that flows out of a racist idolatry.
Whiteness damages our humanity. It diminishes our capacity to have empathy. Think about how we describe psychopaths. What's a definition of a psychopath?
So you're saying the entire white race?
Well, I'm saying,
I agree with you. Hold on. Yeah. Yes, you are correct. But the reason why you know that is that you had a relationship.
We're so disconnected from a biblical worldview and a biblical understanding of the world that we think it's appropriate to listen to white people worship us. I'm not worthy of worship. My skin color doesn't make me worthy of worship. Listening to some deranged white woman denigrate herself and other white people doesn't elevate me. That woman's nuts, and the woman that's gassing her and egging her on is just as nuts.
The other day I was reading an article where a man said that he was no longer going to identify with a certain religious group because that group did not stand against racial injustice or stand for a certain race or group, at least not according to his standards. And his argument was that he was a black man before he was a Christian. And that message really bothered me because I have no idea what that means. I mean, I understand what he's saying and I understand what he thinks it means. But when you are the pastor of a church or when you are considered a Christian, race is not supposed to be the focus. We have a race to finish. That focus, yes, but not the race that deals with skin color. The focus of the church, the message of the gospel is not dealing with race, is not dealing with skin, it's dealing with sin. It is dealing with repentance, crying out to the Lord to forgive us, to change and mold our hearts, for his grace to fall on us and for us to be saved so we can enjoy him for all eternity. The church is not a social club. A pastor is not a social, racial, cultural advocate. He is a pastor. He is supposed to protect and guide the sheep while beating the living crap out of whatever wolf wants to come near his church, his people, God's people. Not taking stands on whether Black Lives Matter or White Lives Matter or what. That's not the church. That is not what we're about. The Apostle Paul understood this. The Apostle Paul understood that there's a difference in ethnicity. The Apostle Paul felt pain for his brother, the ethnic Jew. But the Apostle Paul also understood that there was something much greater than that. And he did not have the luxury to focus on ethnicity. He did not have the luxury or the time to focus on racial and cultural and political and social issues, because he understood that there was something much more than that. It was not about a skin color. It was about sin. It wasn't about the race being defined as something that what you look like, but finishing a race, finishing, getting there. So at the end of your life, you can hear good and faithful servant. That is what Paul understood. That is what Jesus understood. That is what the message of the gospel is. The gospel, repent, believe in Christ. Believe that God entered human history to die for us. in order to save us from the wrath of the Father. That is the gospel of Jesus Christ. It is not about whether you're black or you're white or you're this and you're that. If you believe, if you have certain convictions about racial issues, political issues, cultural issues, there's avenues that you can explore. There's certain things that you can do. But the church should not be falling apart because of this stuff. It's absolute insanity to me that there are people within the church, brothers and people who call themselves brothers and sisters, being divided because some man beat some woman in a political race, or because a white man killed a black man, or because a black man killed a white man, or because of this, or because of that. Is not it. If the gates of hell themselves cannot prevail against the church, how is it that all this cultural and racial and social nonsense is beating the crap out of the church the way it is?
Let me start with you. Two people in Britain today who've been at the forefront of not saying what a woman is. One is Nicola Sturgeon, the ex-First Minister of Scotland, who lost her job because of this ridiculous farce of a rapist self-identifying. She tweeted today, proud on International Women's Day to visit my old University of Glasgow, and banged on about women's rights. This is the woman who just literally lost her job for allowing a male rapist into a female prison. And Sir Keir Starmer, who's leader of the opposition Labour Party here, was talking about protections for women in Parliament today, and yet he refuses to say what a woman is. Where are we with this? How has it come that leaders of parties in countries like the UK, and we see a lot of it in America as well, just won't say what a woman is?
Well, first of all, I have to apologize to you because all of this wokeness originates here in the United States of America, and then we export it to you in the UK.
Yes, you're to blame.
So we started this really in America. Yes, we are. You know, the wokeness starts here, and then it, of course, moves over, and now you guys have to deal with it. The world has to deal with it. But I say this, I'm proud to celebrate International Women's Day because I know what a woman is. So I would say if you don't know what a woman is, you don't get to celebrate it. You don't get to pretend to be a feminist when it's helpful to you or helpful to your political narrative. You have to be able to define what a woman is. This is all a farce. They are seeking to erase women, and this is the radical rainbow mafia, as I call it. This is not your average LGBT activist. This is the rainbow mafia section of that radical LGBTQ movement that has made women less than, and then has elevated all of this transgenderism and all of this pick your gender, identify as potato. They have hijacked the women's rights movement, the feminist movement, and actual feminists should be really pissed off about it.
Well, as a feminist, I am. I recently interviewed Angelica, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, and I asked him this question, which seems to stump many other leaders. Here's the clip. What is a woman? We know that Nicola Sturgeon can't answer that. We know Keir Starmer can't answer that. You're the British Prime Minister. What is a woman?
Yeah, of course I know what a woman is. Adult human female.
It's not difficult, is it, Angelica? I mean, that is what a woman is.
I mean, I don't know why you're obsessed with defining it. Like, what is a man? Like, why do we need these arbitrary...
A man is a male, adult human. I mean, that's it.
Right, okay. I don't know that we need
these are just biological facts, but they're just facts. They're not arguable points, are they?
But I think we have a right to self-identify. And you said you want to...
As what?
If you'd like to be a woman, you can identify as a woman. I don't know why there is such an issue around...
We've literally just seen a male rapist use that scam to get himself put into a female prison where he could attack vulnerable women inside a female prison, when even his ex-wife said it was all a scam.
Which is a terrible, very distressing, isolated incident. And I think it's easy to take that and say that means that no one can identify as a woman. And
But it's not an isolated incident, though.
But it's
42% of trans-identifying prisoners in prison are in there for sex crimes. There's actually an advantage, evidently, to identifying as a female, because they never identify as male, because somehow male prisons seem less appealing to them. It's really weird. Anyway, but
is it limitless, this self-identity?
It's not totally limitless.
What's the limit?
When you're talking about International Women's Day, I don't know why we take the conversation around International Women's Day and make it about this.
But if anyone,
there's so many benefits.
Right, but if
to having
anyone,
a day.
according to you, can identify as a woman, anyone can, right?
I don't see a problem with
Just literally put the hand up and say, I'm a woman.
But it's not an easy thing to do, to go out into
Actually,
the world.
it's
very easy.
Very easy.
You might think it's easy to say, but to decide to do that, to say
What
this
does
is
doing
who,
it involve?
Whatever that person decides, but to
Does
go
it
out
involve
into the
makeup?
world and say, I don't identify as perhaps the sex I
So
was
why
born
can't
as.
I
It's not-
identify? Okay, why can't I identify as a black lesbian?
Well, firstly, I mean, it was.
Well, I'm serious. I'm serious. If I can identify as anything
Mhm.
without any need to prove I'm actually what that is,
I
why can't I on International Women's Day say, I'm Piers Morgan, I'm a black lesbian?
Christianity is the most mocked religion. Like, we look at religions with respect and dignity. Whether it's Islam or Hinduism, we look at those with respect and dignity. And even if they have practices that we don't agree with, Christianity is the most openly, easily mocked.
This is true. Christianity is the most hated and mocked religion in the entire world. Every other religion and belief seems to be accepted, but not Christianity. But why is that? Jesus actually tells us why. He says that light has come into this world and people love the darkness rather than the light because their works were evil. They don't want to be exposed as sinners. Jesus said that we will be hated because the world hates him. Am I saddened by this? No. Only confirms my beliefs.
Why the hate of the most marvelous, compassionate, gracious, kind, loving human who ever walked on the earth, and more than that, the God-man? Why all the hate? And Jesus answered that in John 7, verse 7. The world hates me because I bear witness to it that its deeds are evil. There is the most hated Christian doctrine. It is the doctrine that theologians have called the doctrine of depravity. The doctrine that declares that the whole human race is sinful. That's what generates the hate. Because fallen man has to find a way to tolerate himself, and the dominant sin in fallen man is pride, and he will create an image of himself which escapes ultimate condemnation. He will spin a web of delusions about himself that he is good, anything but that his deeds are evil.
I'm Ami Horowitz, and I'm here in Berkeley, California to find out if voter ID laws suppress the black vote. Do you have an opinion on voter ID laws?
Yeah, they're usually pretty racist and they're bad. I think voter ID laws are a way to perpetuate racism.
Would you go as far as say those laws are racist?
For sure.
Do you think it suppresses the African American vote?
Definitely.
Tell us how.
Because they're less likely to have state IDs.
Minority voters are less likely to have the kinds of IDs that have been described or required.
These type of people don't live in areas with easy access to DMVs or other places where they can get identification.
You can always get IDs you do over the internet. Does that also make it difficult for black people in particular?
Yeah, you have to have access to the internet. You have to be able to pay an internet service provider for certain fees.
Do you think that's harder for black people to go online?
Well, I feel like they don't have the knowledge of how it works.
A lot of people have smartphones, but you might not have data.
For most of the communities, they don't really know what is out there just because they're not aware or they're not informed. I also think there's a repression of black voting with how if you're a convicted felon, you're not allowed to vote and everything. And when you look at swing states like Florida, that's a huge population of the African Americans.
Now I'm here in East Harlem to ask black people their thoughts on what you just heard. Do you have ID normally? Do you carry ID around?
Yes, I have state ID.
Do you carry ID?
Yes, I do.
Do you know any black person who doesn't carry ID?
No. Everyone that I know has an ID. Why would they think we don't have ID?
That's a lie. Why would they say that?
Do you have ID?
Yes.
Because I have my ID and my friends have their ID, so we know what we need to carry around.
Everybody that I know have ID. That's one of the things you need to walk around with New York with, ID.
Do you know any black adult who does not have ID?
No, I don't.
Is it a weird thing to even say that?
Yes, it is.
What is this, some type of trick candy cameras?
I know, right? That's the only thing I brought with me.
Those are legit IDs. I heard a lot also that black people can't figure out how to get to the DMV.
Really?
What does that say to you?
I know it's that, on 25th Street.
Do you know where the DMV is around you?
It's on 125th Street and 3rd Avenue, I believe.
You know how to get there?
Yeah.
Would you have a problem getting there if you had to get there?
No.
I know these sound like silly questions. You know how to get to the DMV?
Of course.
You know where it is?
Yes.
You can get there?
Uh-huh.
No problem.
No problem.
Just checking.
Okay.
And I also heard a lot that black people, especially poor black people, have no access to the internet, can't figure out how to use the internet.
That's just stupidity, honestly. Everybody has access to the internet. Even a little kid could figure out how to work the internet.
I had access to the internet for years.
You know how to use it properly, right?
Exactly. I do it at work. So of course I know how to use it.
Smart.
My kids know how to use it. They all have iPads, iPods, whatever.
Your phone has data? You can access the internet
Unlimited.
with unlimited data.
I use my phone as a hotspot.
What does that say to you for the people who have this perception of black people?
They're pretty much ignorant. That's what my thought process was.
I just think that's ignorant. Ignorant.
Ignorant. That's the word I'm hearing a lot.
Ignorant.
Ignorant.
Very, very ignorant.
Does it sound racist for somebody to say that?
I think it is a little racist because, you know, you're putting people in a category and you have no idea what you're talking about.
Maybe a little bit of racist in it, but like I said, I think it's more stupidity and ignorance.
You're judging somebody, but you're judging them because they black, saying that they don't got it.
What people are they talking to? Who are these people talking to?
Do you have a problem that if you go to vote and they say, can we please see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are? Are you
Love
cool?
showing my ID.
You got no problem with that?
Nope.
Would you have a problem if when you go to vote, if they say, can we please just see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are? Do you have an issue with that?
No.
Would you have a problem if there was a rule where you have to show your ID in order to vote?
I don't think so. No.
Would you have an issue if there was a rule saying you got to show your ID before you vote?
Nah.
Are you cool with that?
Yeah.